Good, go.
We ready?
Yep.
Bruce, I'd like to call the June 28th regular board meeting to order, and I might announce that I have been selected as chair for this coming year, and I'm proud to be so. And if this time, thank you. If we'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have one proxy tonight. David, you have Pat Lowry's proxy, is that correct? Do you have that taken care of, Mr. McCash? Yes. Okay. Celebrating success, sir.
Hi, my name is Kim Graves, and I'm the newest member of the HR team for the POA. In HR, reinforcing positive behavior is one of our key aspects in growing a culture that everybody wants to be at work. One of the programs that we have in place is celebrating success. We want to award this certificate to those that meet specific criteria and have a positive attitude. The criteria for this award include attitude, commitment, work performance, and personal traits. Today, I have the privilege to present the Celebrate Success Award to Eric Fitchie. Eric was nominated for his exemplary performance in helping the Bella Vista Garden Club event completely succeed. In their words, he says that Eric has tremendous support in assuring that we had what we needed to show our videos at the Bella Vista Garden Club. The videos were of great importance for the presentation. He never gave up and was always there when we needed him to tweet something or assure that we had sound, etc. He had great customer support, and he will not be forgotten. His can-do attitude and helpful smile is a plus for Lake Point. We appreciate him so much and want to make sure that he is recognized for his efforts.
Thank you, Eric.
Very good.
It was a good day.
Thank you, Eric.
$10 will get you a good scotch.
Moving on to the board minutes work session of May 17th. Go ahead.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the May 17, 2018 board work session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? I'll entertain a motion to approve the May 24th, 2018 Board of Directors regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, next item on the agenda. On May 21st, a notice was sent out to community seeking those interested in serving on the Board of Directors. Residents interested in the opening were required to submit their resume by June 6th. On June 12th, the board had 12 candidates scheduled to interview. It turns out one candidate was unable to appear for their interview and another withdrew in the morning. The board ended up interviewing 10 candidates on the 12th. Of the candidates, the board decided the property owner's Mike Abb was most qualified. At the regular board meeting tonight, we will schedule a vote for a formal approval of Mike Abb, and he will serve a term of 1 year until the next election in 2019. The board would like to thank all other candidates for their interest in serving on the board. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to select Mike Abb as the interim board position.
I move that we select
property owner Mike Ave for the interim board position.
I'll second that.
Discussion. No discussion? Okay. Call for a vote.
All in favor? It's 2, 3, 4, 5. Any opposed? 1. Any abstentions?
I'll abstain. I was not here during the interview period, but I reviewed all the candidates, the information they sent us, and I was in favor of Mike Abb. So I think he's a good selection, even though I will abstain tonight.
Okay.
David, yours was 2,
Two.
correct? Just want to make sure.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Mike, we'd like to have you join us at the table.
Get up here.
We welcome you.
Welcome. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mike.
And our first order of business then, or next order will be financial report.
All righty, well, this is the financials, starting with the POA, 5 months into the year through May 2018 year-to-date numbers.
It's the heat.
Okay, it switched on this one.
Yeah.
It switched there.
Gotta love computers.
It's trying to.
It's changed on here, but it's not going up there.
It's short if you just want to flip it.
See, that's not even what's on display right now. I start again. I recommend you get your.
I second.
He lost the signal. That's crazy. Slideshow. Starts.
Excuse us for the technical difficulties.
Slideshow from the beginning.
It's just too hot in here for it.
Is it because of this? Okay, we got that.
Yeah. We can do it manually.
No. Okay, so let's just close it all out. Cancel. There you go. Okay.
He's going to do it. Okay, we'll start with the POA. And we're going to look at the total income line. The yellow signifies variance to budget, and the goldenrod is going to signify variance to the prior year, year-over-year comparison. Looking at the budget on total income, it's short $93,000, unfavorable budget. Photo IDs are up $58,000. Past due collections are better than budget, $53,000. Investment income, due to less reserves and also market adjustments through the year, is a negative $40,000. And golf, weather-related and other, is down $139,000 from budget. Next slide. Looking at the same comparison except year to year over last year, food and beverage is up $503,000. Lake Point had just barely opened in May of last year, and Country Club was not open, so it's all new this year comparisons. So it's up $503,000 compared to last year. Golf, again, due to weather, down $57,000. Carroll Electric rebate, we got a rebate. We get one every 14 months about for capital credits returned from Carroll Electric, and that was $93,000 difference. Collections windfall. Legal had a lot of collections windfall the first part of last year. That's down $166,000 from that windfall. And we also had a Walton family donation on the Skills Park in 2017 worth $170,000 in that number. Investment income also with fuel reserves and market adjustment is down from last year, $296,000. Next slide. Cost of goods sold, it's about budget against budget. And next slide, against prior year, equipment items is better by $198,000. trying to match revenue with expenses. Operating expenses compared to prior year, salaries and wages are higher, $491. Again, food and beverage, we have a lot of food and beverage salaries this year that we didn't have last year. 60% of that number of the $491 is related to food and beverage, and the other budget changes across the division because each budget year is different. Health insurance is unfavorable by $333,000. Again, we're self-insured in the first 5 months of last year was a very low claim year. Equipment and supplies are higher by $208,000 against budget change, buying more equipment. Supplies or repairs and maintenances were higher by $139,000, and utilities $77,000. Again, food and beverage made up 40% of that utility number. EBITDA, therefore, the budget variance is a positive $330,000. Prior year is a negative $1,717,000. Looking on down to the net income, $336,000 positive on budget, negative $1,782 on prior year comparison. Going down to simple cash flow, positive $436,000. Even with all of the negative, we still have a positive $436,000 on simple cash flow. And against prior year, it's $2,333,000, again, due to all the facts that we've already enumerated. Checking on water now, same period, 5 months running. Gross profits better by $286,000 due to the growth, more connections, more water sales, more sales being of water. $312,000 positive on that one. The investments are down for the negative $35,000, again due to reduced reserves and market adjustments. Next slide. The prior year comparison, growth again, $283,000, that $201 positive. And investment income, fewer reserves and market adjustment, down $107. Looking at operating expenses, we're about budget on the water utility. And on prior year comparison, we're down $235,000. Health insurance on the water side was $40,000 of that number. Maintenance, $31,000, and equipment purchases, $117,000. Looking at the EBITDA, positive $279,000 against budget, a negative $34,000 against prior year comparison. And net income is $269,000 positive variance against a negative variance prior year of $56,000. Moving down to the final number, down on simple cash flow, positive $236,000 on the water utility, 5 months running, and almost budget against prior year, a negative $1. That concludes my report. Any questions? Yes.
Just one, I bragged about the blossoming of food and beverage at the work session last week. And we're 5 months into it. I know we're delayed at the country club. However, we've got a budget of revenue for the year of the two, especially Lake Point and Country Club, of like 1.8, 1.9 million revenue. And I think things are going really good out there. We've still got a problem with cost of sales and expenses, but are you, especially you, Tom, are you optimistic we can catch up this year? Because it's a real important part of our total budget.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm confident that we're going to make it by the end of the year. Remember that we don't have any comparisons when we wrote the budget,
Right.
So we didn't know how much revenue we were going to make at Lake Point or at the Country Club for the first portion of the year. For the entire year of the Country Club, we won't have any historical data.
Right.
So budgeting for the first year on both operations is going to be a challenge. But we're very optimistic. At Lake Point, our events are doing very, very well. And we're rolling out a modified menu for Lake Point that'll be coming out the first part of next month, which we think will help us. And then the Country Club is just doing fantastic. It changed a little while ago, but we were making some more tweaks. We felt that the menu was a little bit too short, and we felt that we needed to expand it just a little bit more. And actually what they're doing is they're going around and talking to, they're kind of promoting the menu with some of our regular customers to get their input regarding the adjustments.
And price points are gonna stay the same or go down?
I want to bring it down just a little bit.
And I know that, again, we had a 10-year pro forma on these, and I don't expect cash flow for a while, but hopefully EBITDA will turn around within the next 2 or 3 years, because I love both facilities, I really do, and I frequent them too often, so, but they're wonderful, so.
Yeah, when we originally entered into the project, we had told the board that we felt that we would hit break even at the 2 or 3 year mark, and I think we're on target for that.
Tom, I've got a question about the investment income being down and the strategy behind that. I remember from prior meetings, you had spoken that Arvest is our primary person that we invest with. And I see $239,000 down. I made a few notes here. What is a 5-year plan on this? What are our target returns? Which investment is the poorest? When has it positively returned? And what is our average amount that we reinvest to this fund on a monthly or yearly basis in order to justify it?
The main reason why it's down is because a lot of that money was in reserve, and we've spent a lot of it on capital projects. So our balance has been gradually reducing, and that's the main contributor to why it's down. We've also some of our reserve was in longer range and more aggressive. And we had a conversation, Dwayne and I had a conversation with the board.
It's been about the last quarter of last year.
About last year. And I felt, I'm going to speak for me, I think you agreed with me, that some of our investments were too aggressive. What I am accustomed to for community investments is CDs and U.S. Treasury bonds, not the market, because that level of risk is usually not advisable for a community association, and a community will never compliment the board for making more on investments, but they will really take the board apart if they lose money. So in addition to the balances coming down, we've also shifted them to be more conservative in nature. And those more conservative investments are not going to bring in quite as much money.
And you are the sole strategy?
No, it's actually, we went in front of the board and made that recommendation, and the board agreed, and we made that adjustment. So no, I don't make that decision on my own. That was an investment strategy that the board approved. Now, Dwayne and I made that recommendation, and the board agreed with it. And yes, we do hire Arvis, and they manage it for us.
And that will come up again.
Yep.
2 questions.
Yes.
First one, am I correct in saying that Highlands food is put in with food and beverage?
Correct.
And Metfield's food is put in with food and beverage?
Put in with golf.
Put in with golf, and Scottsdale is with golf?
Golf.
Okay, so Highlands is the only one with food and beverage?
Yes.
Okay, so there's 3 with food and beverage then. Okay, the other question is, I know we had openings last year, the same as we do, aren't filled. Are they pretty similar numbers this year? I know the budget shows fairly close. Are the numbers pretty close to last year openings we had?
Are you talking to?
All
The-
unemployment, employment openings?
Openings, okay.
Openings.
I think we have fewer openings this year than last year. Last year we really struggled. I think last year we averaged between 20 and 25 open positions the entire year. Now, they were not necessarily the same positions. We would
Right.
fill one and then lose one, fill one, lose one. I would say, Doug, maybe you can jump in on this, but I think we're looking at between 5 and 10 open positions at this time.
Yeah, there's 7 food and beverage, and then 4 that are outside of food and beverage.
So
current
then the
openings.
conscious effort from the managers to keep the cost down has presented that
Correct.
apart.
And I don't think any of the positions, correct me if I'm wrong, any of the positions are full-time. They're all part-time at this point.
I believe that's true.
And so the impact is also less.
Okay. Any other questions for finances? Thank you. Appreciate that, Dwayne. Response to previous open forums. We had 2 last time. It was Dylan Shattuck, and he encouraged the membership to get involved. And Charlie Teal gave an update to the APT tournament that we held about 3 weeks ago, and a very successful event, I might say. Other than that, that was it for last month, and we're ready for open forum for this month. No open forum questions or comments? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Can we just remind the board to please speak into the mic so we can hear you and so the TV?
We can do that.
Make sure that your
You're on, number
green
one.
button is on, and make sure you lower the mic
Thank you, Linda.
closer to your mouth.
Any others? If not, we'll move into joint advisories. Lakes Committee. I don't see anybody from the Lakes Committee. David, do you want to take that one first, please?
Okay.
There you go.
Of course, they talked about getting ready for budget and recommendations, things like that, and no recommendations yet, but they're talking about it. They talked, Rick talked to the committee about the fertilization program. Lake Ann responded to the fertilization, turns green. Loch Lomond kind of responded, and then it cleared up again. And his theory is that the phosphorus in the lake is limited, and that is a big determinant on whether you get the bloom that you're looking for. And since it's been a couple months now of reduced rainfall, his suspicion is that no runoff equals not enough phosphorus in the lake. So he was going to get back to this and try again to get the bloom in Loch Lomond. There was quite a talk, a bit of discussion about dependent cards as they apply to young people, dependents coming with friends to the lakes. They have, in some cases, been making a nuisance of themselves. They get a little bit rowdy. The question primarily is how many guests can a dependent have there? And so they got 3 members that are going to get together and get into this a little bit deeper and try to come up with some recommendations for next year in ways we might fine tune the policy as a board and try to keep the peace in Bella Vista. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. There was another request about why Bella Vista does not allow personal watercraft. We don't. Rick, excuse me, Rick said that he got about 4,100 walleye out of the aquaculture ponds. He was not too pleased with that, but he says that's 4,000 of them. He's looking for alternative ponds for next year that will not be subject to flooding. And he's also thinking about moving the kids' fishing derby to one of the ponds on the farm portion of Dogwood Country Club, Dogwood. Anyway, old business again. They talked about, the drawdown for Lake Windsor has been approved, and talked about, they had several members address the committee about their concerns about the fish cleaning that goes on at Granton Park, I believe, and the debris that's left over from cleaning fish and how it attracts nuisance animals and all that. So basically that was the gist of the Lakes meeting.
Okay, and there will be public meeting about the drawdown and the different people available for work in that area before they draw down the Windsor.
Oh yeah, try to keep the people informed and so that they can make plans to get any work done that they need done in the time frame available.
Okay.
Yeah, Rick is setting up 2 different meetings for the community. One will be a 7 o'clock evening meeting, and the other one will be a 4 o'clock. I don't remember the dates, and Leah doesn't remember either. But they're coming up.
David?
Dave, what, and this, back in the, some of the comments there, what do we consider personal watercraft?
Jet skis,
Skidoos?
the ones you ride on rather than ride in.
As long as they don't come by when I'm fishing, they can have one.
Any other questions for David? Or about lakes? If not, recreation? Gary?
God. Oh, it seemed like I have to bend over to it. All right, so we had our meeting on June 11th. We had quite a few things, talked about quite a few things. As it relates to the amenity reports, Ranch Group, you know, is under demolition and being rebuilt. The gun ranges, things were pretty, we had a couple issues about how to pay for this and that, but basically, most of the things that are inside the amenity reports is it was it's all good. And we did have a complaint about an unneutered dog, but I don't know if that's been taken care of. And Lake Avalon's been packed with people, and disc golf was just announced yesterday too, which I think is a fantastic thing to talk about as well. And things are going along well in that field as it relates to the bathrooms, and we're getting playground equipment. We're taking care of that as well. From a new business standpoint, June 30th, we do have a new welcome meet and greet. There was only 55 people that were signed up for that. Is it 75?
65 now.
65? Excellent. So it's just been getting bigger and better, and it's gotten a lot of great feedback as well. So we're going to continue to do those as more people come to Bella Vista.
Yeah. Every quarter, Debbie puts those on.
Yeah, quarterly. Let's see. We also had to say that our fondant dues to Jane Barfield and to Ron Jugs, as they are exiting from the committee, and we added on 2 new people. And the first one is Steve Bork, who's lived here for about a year, is very active in a lot of the different amenities that we use, as well as Ken Fink, who moved here not too long ago and has been active as well, and has been a big help in a lot of different things, especially with like pickleball and a few other amenities that we have. So we've got a good base of people, I think, that run the gamut and using everything that we use from an amenity perspective here at Bella Vista. We're also going to be working towards the budget once again from a recreation standpoint, and our next meeting will be focused on that. And we may have an additional meeting to wrap things up before we can get it to the committee, to the board. And let's see, other than that, I think that's about it.
Thank you, Gary. Questions?
I have a question. What happens at the new resident meeting? Are they presented with any sort of packets or information, or is it all verbal?
They do get a packet, and I know we're working on getting more than one thing to them, but they do get a welcome packet as they arrive. And Tom's there as well and provides input from the board from that perspective. And we do have other, I can't talk to who exactly was there last time besides Debbie and you. And
Well, it's the mayor and I, Debbie will welcome all the new residents, and those new residents she defines as anybody that's been here 6 months or less. But we don't, if someone was unable to make one of the previous ones, we welcome them. So Debbie will welcome everybody. We'll go through a lot of the literature that we have, like the map folder that we have. We'll give information regarding trying to give the new residents a better understanding the difference between the POA, the city, and the ACC, those types of documents that we have. And then the mayor and I do about an hour-and-a-half Q&A, which is very helpful. Debbie and her crew bring cookies and coffee and everything. And then after the event, I usually give a tour of the country club.
And is this the first time you're switching to the country club? I know I attended one at Reardon.
The last one we did 3 months ago was here.
Oh, good.
And that was the first one that we had held here.
Good.
So this will, but we'll do it. We do it in the Vista Vista room from here on out. Works very well. And since it starts at 9, we usually finish at 11, and then a lot of them will go in and have lunch.
Is having the new residents here, is that an opportunity to find out why they came here?
Absolutely. One of the questions that we always ask is, I want to get an understanding of people. You know, if someone found out about the community through their parents 30 years ago, that's a marketing effort that's 30 years ago. I really don't care about it. So I'll usually ask the question, who had not heard of Bella Vista 3 or 4 years ago? And we'll have them raise their hands, and we'll actually have them go and sit down with Kim Carlson from our marketing after the meeting so we can get a better understanding of how they learned about us and what drew them here.
Any others for Gary?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Golf Joint Committee. Susan, do you have that one? Okay.
The golf committee met on June 13th. The primary discussion of the day was the request from the board for the golf committee to review the golf strategy. There were 4 points on that strategy, and they're in your packets. The committee voted to accept that challenge. We have a public meeting scheduled for July 10th to discuss it, and then also on July 11th, after the golf committee meeting, the committee themselves will formulate the recommendation, and the public is welcome to attend that. We are going to have an organizational meeting on July 5th, so we plan the meeting. We're not going to discuss the topics, we're just going to plan the meeting on July 5th. And the public is welcome to come to that too if they want, but we won't be really encouraging public input at that particular meeting. We also were asked to provide feedback on budget matters by August 17th. So we'll be doing that, but we're going to take that up after the strategy piece. And by then we should have new committee members on board. The sprigging on Scottsdale, although it seems like old news now, was to start on June 14th. And I believe we're still on track to reopen Scottsdale on September 1st.
Absolutely.
Correct? Good. Let's see, the other thing that was happening that I believe you're probably going to discuss tonight is the master plan for the country club, that an RFQ has been sent out to consulting firms to evaluate what should be done or could be done to the country club to help harden it against flood damage in the future. So I think that's it. I think those were the high points. I do want to mention we do have a new tournament this year for the Alzheimer's Association. It's August 14th or August 18th. The marketing department's been helping put together materials, and the team is starting to sell sponsorships for that event now. So soon we'll be looking for golfers. Okay.
That will be called the longest day?
The longest day, right? That's part of the Alzheimer's national program.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's successful, maybe next year we'll get it closer to the longest day. Right, but they do a lot of marketing around that, and that would be helpful from our standpoint. Any questions? Oh, one other thing is the consulting study. We expect that soon, and would like to be able to read it in time for our July 5th meeting. If we can get that, that would be helpful.
July 5th?
July 5th. We'd like to be able to read it,
Okay.
you know, well in advance of the public meeting, because it should inform some of the discussion. Okay.
Not a problem.
Great, thank you.
Okay. And community involvement, Caleb? Is that correct, Caleb? Thank you.
Thank you. The Community Involvement Joint Action Committee met on June 7th. The meeting was called at 6:03 p.m. at right here. We first off revisited details of last year's Tailgate and Fireflies event, which we held this month on the 16th. We detailed specifically the method of advertising and planned out a little bit of what we would do this time. Joan provided an update on the beach. Testing done on the lake water was meeting standards for testing requirements so far, and she also presented that the playground installations are going well, replacing infrastructure and getting ahead on construction. Then regarding the Tailgates and Fireflies event, we scheduled to meet for the event. We had an update on catering for the event and made sure to decide to keep the event as organic as possible. Then during open discussion, Dylan and Monica attended a public input meeting specifically discussing the relationship between the POA, the city, and the community, and they gave us an update on that meeting. And then we discussed rumors of wanting to try and arrange an organization to create an archery range in Bella Vista that had been popping up on Facebook a lot. The meeting was called at 7:08 p.m., and there is no meeting scheduled for the month of July.
So resume again in August.
Yes.
Okay, questions?
Yeah, was the Firefly event successful?
I feel like we will know that at the next meeting for sure. We haven't discussed that at the meeting, so.
Did you attend?
Yes, I did attend.
So what is your opinion about
I think we'll discuss it at the next meeting, and I'll have an opinion then.
Good answer.
Thank you.
There were some challenges.
Any other questions?
There were some challenges.
Thank you all for
Ken.
your time.
Appreciate that. Okay, if vice reports, we'll move into old business, and I see none on the agenda. So let's move into new business, Country Club and Course Stream Bank. Tom, do you want to take that one, please?
Page 47 of the board packet, you'll see that the request for qualifications went out, and they are actually due back by July 2nd. They were sent out to 6 different firms, and one of the firms declined because they just signed a very large commitment. But you'll see that we've received commitments back from 5 different companies that we feel have great experience in dealing with floodwaters, but through the RFQ, we'll learn even more about the work that these firms have done. I've already received one of them. We've had numerous visits. One of the gentlemen was here yesterday, in fact. So we'll be reporting back to the board relatively soon once they all roll in after July 2nd deadline. Any questions on that?
Do we have any more coming in for a visit that you know of?
Not that I know of. I think it's
So they should be
not at
coming
this
in.
time.
Okay.
So what you said, one of them had to drop out, so almost to your point last time, it was good to have a short list of 4
So, yeah,
versus 3.
we still have 4, right? Well,
We have
none
5.
of them.
We have 5.
We have
The
5.
hope
We
is
start
that
at
when we
6.
get to the proposal stage, we'll have 4 proposals, or we're asking, hopefully, instead for 4, but we need 3 to approve a bid process. So, good question.
Yeah, so we started with 6, we're down to 5 right now, and all 5 have said that they will submit an RFQ, but we'll learn on the 2nd if all of them came through with the RFQ. And then we'll, per the advice of the board, we will narrow it down to 4. We just want to make sure that whomever we invite to go to the next round, we feel is capable. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I think all of them are capable, but we'll find out more. Okay?
Any other questions?
With that RFQ, just help me understand, they submit the design, but they then contract local builders?
No, on the RFQ, what they're talking, if you read through the RFQ, you'll see that we're really just asking them to describe their experience so we can get a comfort level that we feel that we have from our perspective, it's a unique situation, but from their perspective, have they dealt with situations that are similar to ours, and do they have the capability to do the job that is going to solve our problem?
David, do you want to
David, is that a
add?
good
Mike,
answer?
let me throw
Please.
something in there, is that two of the firms that that we invited are very familiar with Bella Vista. The Alt Clark and Associates have designed 5.5 of our golf courses. The original golf course here at Bella Vista Country Club was done by a gentleman named Joe Finger many years ago. Mr. Finger died some years ago. And Alt Clark has designed the other golf courses we have, Tom Clark specifically, and then Bill Love used to work with that firm, and he did some renovations at the country club. So Tom Clark and Bill Love are intimately familiar with the country club. That's why we invited them. They know the land, the course, and the problems that we face every day. They're not going to make a visit here because they already know the ground. We furnished them with a link to the flood study, and I've asked them to review that, because what we're looking for are suggestions and ideas that will help us protect the country club in Kingswood, the other golf courses in the valley there, against future flood problems. So those firms are very familiar with it. The other ones that we have listed in there, Andy Staples is a University of Arkansas graduate. He knows Northwest Arkansas. He's worked in this area. He knows it very well. John Colligan is very familiar with the issues that we face because he's worked in Central Texas, especially in the Dallas area around all those streams, lakes, and rivers down there. He's done a lot of flood work. Lester George has done the same thing with clubs all over the country. So they all have the experience to deal with the issues that we face. We didn't require that they come for this visit. When it comes time for an interview, they will be required to come and visit and meet and greet all of us and finish up the process.
Yeah, and the real decision point will be when they submit RFPs,
Right.
proposals with dollar figures and an explanation of some of the details that they hope to pursue in regards to making the country club a little more flood-proof, and how they'll work with a hydrologist to determine what details will make the country club golf course more flood-proof regarding greens, tees, fairways, and then also rejuvenating the golf course, which was opened in 1968. There'll be certain features that they'll recommend adding to the golf course. We may or may not be able to afford it in quickly, but we may be able to afford some of that in sequence. But the stated goal of the board is to make the country club a lot more flood-proof for the future. So that'll appear when we get the proposals, the RFPs they're called. Now it's just to determine if they're qualified.
Let me follow up with one other thing there, Mike. When you're talking, your question was, would they work with some local contractors, whatever. Typically what an architect does, he'll formulate a plan there, and you'll come up with a 5 or 10 year master plan to make these changes that we want to make to the country club or the other golf courses. And they will have a detailed plan that shows the work that we need to accomplish or want to accomplish, and we as the board will approve that when they present those ideas. And when the time comes to put that out to bid, we will probably be already working with an engineer at that time that will help us with the stream bank stabilization in conjunction with any changes that they might recommend to the golf courses. And we will approve as a board. We'd put that out to bid to various golf course contractors. There are no local golf course contractors in this area. Most of them are from out of this area. They'll be from Kansas City or Dallas or wherever. So to your point on that one, they'll probably have to work with somebody outside the area, but they will be contractors that we will actually wind up approving for their ability, much like we're asking for an RFQ now. We'll make sure that they're qualified to do the work.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? If not, let's move on to.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the proposed new community center, the public meetings. Included in the 2018 capital budget was work to be done on preliminary plans. We did a 3-bid process, and Hastings and Chavetta, which specialize in this type of architectural work, was selected. Joan actually visited multiple community centers that were developed by Hastings and Chavetta. So at this point, we formulated some focus groups and steering committees to get a good basis for what we feel is going to be a good potential new community center. The next step is what we want to do is have public meetings, and those meetings, and notices have already gone out to the community, will take place on July 23rd at 6 p.m. at Reardon Hall and July 24th at 8 a.m. at Reardon Hall. In addition to that, it was recommended by the board at last week's meeting that we do a survey, use SurveyMonkey to go out for anybody that is not able to make either of those meetings, so that we get their input and potentially incorporate it into the final plans. Do want to reiterate, everything is in planning stages, everything is proposed, no formal project other than the preliminary design of the project has been approved at this time.
Could we have Joan at those meetings?
Absolutely, she's going to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, Joan will be there, and a representative from Hastings and Trevetta will be there.
Understood. Okay.
Tom, is the new community center slated to be exactly where the old one, where Reardon is at? It would be using the same plot of property?
Well, I don't want to reveal too much before the meeting, but it would be in the same general area. What our goal one of the stated goals that we had was to keep Reardon Hall open during construction. Keep the pool, the outdoor pool, the Kingsdale Pool Complex, and Reardon Hall open during construction. So our plan, the plan that we'll show, we would locate it next to that area, because we know that such a large project would be potentially an 18-month project, and we didn't want those facilities down for that long. That would be a large, unfortunately we've had to close Branchwood for 4 months, and that has proved to be a large inconvenience for some of our property owners, and so 18 months would be significantly worse.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, moving on.
The next item is the golf course strategy, a fresh new look, as we have said. This has already gone out to the community. It has been presented to the golf committee, and Susan referenced the meetings that will be taking place. We want to make sure is that the committee holds open meetings and solicits input from the community before they come back to the board with recommendations. We have given the committee, the golf committee, some preliminary thoughts about the matter. We talked about this at the golf committee meeting of, do we go to the golf committee with a clean blank sheet of paper, or do we give them our initial thoughts and let them go from there? And we chose the latter, where we didn't want to just go with a blank sheet of paper. We really wanted to at least give some additional guidance, but it'll be interesting to see where they go with their recommendations, and they will ultimately report back to the board, and by their recommendations need to be submitted to the board by July 18th. Any questions?
Seeking input.
Seeking input. The next item on the agenda is the revised P&L format. Dwayne and I have been working over the last 2 years in simplifying a number of our financial documents. And so at last week's meeting, you would have received a sample one, and we actually asked you to not get too in-depth on the numbers last week and just look at the format, and now you can actually see the format and actually look at the numbers in more detail. Our goal, what we did was we set up each department into a business center. and we report on the revenue, the cost of sales, the payroll, and the expenses for each of the departments, each of the business centers individually, so that you can clearly see how each of them is doing against budget and against prior year. For those that want additional information and really want to dig in deeper, those additional reports will also be made available on our website. But we really wanted to target the format for this P&L to be the average person, you know, the majority of the people, to make it simplified. And for the high-end users, the number crunchers and the XAs, we'll have additional information on our website for them.
Tom, I applaud you beginning day one when you got here, trying to condense the number of departments, and you did that. And I don't know how many, we had 41, where it went down to 24 or something. And then now the potential of designating these as full standing business centers, I think, is a real enlightenment, because it reflects more on for-profit businesses as well. I know some of these are truly cost centers, they don't have revenue, but I think it will be a terrific way to weigh the departments that we have. What are we down to, 24? Or?
Well, we have sub-departments, but right now we have, I think it's 12 departments that we work with.
As far as reporting. Yeah.
And you actually can look on the top of the header, and you'll see the department head that is directly responsible for it. Yeah. And it's part of the accountability, forcing the accountability down. If you recall conversations that we've had when I got here, the department heads did not necessarily write their own budgets.
Right.
And now they do. This will be the third year that they're writing their own budgets, and a lot of them are getting better and better, more accurate at doing their own budgets, but it's forcing that accountability down.
But now their expenses and everything are part of their department.
Absolutely.
And not wages separate to the total. And I congratulate you and Joanne for this switchover that's taken a couple, 3 years. But I think it'll help us financially in the long run.
In my opinion, the documents are a lot clearer and easier to read. There's nowhere to hide. You know, it's all the blemishes, all the good stuff is there, and all the bad stuff is there. But that's how it should be. It should be as transparent as possible.
One number that did stick out was maintenance. How did maintenance have revenue?
Which department, what page?
Oh, page 16.
Oh, that's cell towers.
Okay, tell me. Okay,
Yeah, cell tower rent.
okay. I just found that amusing how they could have rent. Any other questions? Do you need a vote or
Nope.
endorsement?
Nope. You guys already gave me the endorsement. We're
Yep,
good to
just-
go.
just
It's
showing
already,
us what it is.
we're already there.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is the proposed budget calendar for 2019. You'll see it's relatively similar to last year's. The only change is that we moved up the calendar just a little bit to give the committees some additional time. Now, the challenge in giving the committees additional time is that some of the terms of committee members they're rolling off at the end of this month. So they've started on this project, yet not all of them will see it all the way through. But we felt that we'd rather give the committees more time than less time. You'll also notice that this completes in the month of November, but we do have some flexibility if the board needed to push that back a little bit, if they had additional questions or wanted additional adjustments made by management.
Okay. For the new board members, the board will receive copies of the budget from the individual departments, and we'll have an opportunity to go over them, and then we will meet as a group, and the individual head of the department will present their budget to us, and we will have an opportunity to ask questions of that department head on the spot as to some of our concerns or some of our questions about their particular budget, and then they have time to come back and revamp it if necessary, or
Absolutely.
tweak it, whatever they need to do.
And then in the month of November, our work session Our work session, the board work session normally takes place at 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll transfer that and we'll have it at 6 p.m. at night, and that will be open to the community and give the community opportunity to ask questions about the budget and so forth.
In the same format will take place.
Same format. I'll do the presentation of the overall budget, but all the department heads will be there in case a very specific question is asked regarding their respective department.
Okay, any questions about budget review?
Do we have any department head positions that are currently not filled?
Right now, I'm going to give you a yes and no answer to that one. Cindy Bassett, our director of HR, resigned a month ago, 3 weeks a month ago, and we're seeing if Doug can take that position over. We think that we may be able to combine that and potentially save some labor. I've told Doug that it's a no-fault experiment. If it doesn't make sense and if it doesn't work, it's not his fault. If anybody, it's my fault. But let's give it a try, and Doug's been at it for 3 weeks to a month so far, and it has been going well so far. So we're not looking to fill that position just yet unless Doug comes to me and says, look, it's just not working. And we knew that even with the departure of Cindy, it would take us a month to 2 months to fill the position anyways. But we have not actively sought out, and you know, Doug's got very well-rounded experience, and so he has HR experience. In my career, I've gone through a lot of HR seminars, so you know, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an HR executive, but I do know quite a bit about it. And so often we'll get together and compare notes. And we're also learning that Kim Graves, Kim made the Celebrating Success presentation earlier. I've been very impressed with her experience and her knowledge. So between the three of us, I think we're doing all right. But as I indicated, it's a no-fault experiment. If we determine that it just doesn't work, then we'll post the position and try and fill it. But if I can eliminate one director position, you know, director positions, they make a decent wage, and if we can eliminate it, that'd be good. Other than that, no positions we haven't turned anybody over a year and a half. We've been pretty stable.
What is our attrition rate across all of the?
I don't have the stats on me. If you look at, I mean, I think you'll know this answer. If you look at food and beverage, it's high. I mean, food and beverage is an industry that has a very high attrition. If you look at the director level, as I mentioned, a very low attrition. The middle managers, pretty low attrition. You know, we have a lot of employees. We were actually researching Lee and I were researching an issue that dates back 27 years, and we have several members of our accounting staff that date back 27 years, and we were able to ask them that question. So, which is interesting. But you know, a lot of our golf staff, you know, keep in mind we have a lot of seasonal employees, and so, you know, how do you factor those into turnover? A lot of our rec staff is seasonal, and they come in during the summertime and they're gone once school starts. But I'd say the majority of our core staff is pretty consistent, other than food and beverage. And food and beverage it's that type of industry with a lot of turnover. I kind of gave you a mixed answer. Did I answer your question?
Sort of.
Sort of, okay. Good.
Any other questions?
Next item on the agenda is the publishing of rounds information. This is one item that I think that you know, the board has been interested in having more transparency. This is one item that's been asked a lot of by different people. So we feel that it would be beneficial to start releasing that information on a monthly basis. The board has agreed to this and has asked management to put together a sample report, which we will present to the board next month. Philip and Daryl are already working on this report, and we just, the one cautionary tale that with more information, there's more questions and potentially more confusion. The example I always give is when rounds are up or down in the spring, they do have a tendency to go up or down based on weather, and some people will misinterpret that information, not realizing that the number of rounds that we do in January, February is a fraction of what we do in June, July, and August. So you can be up or down 40%, and that can really concern people, and it's nothing to be concerned about in the first few months.
Maybe 1,000 rounds.
It may not be much at all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Tom, I noticed in the previous week's information that there was 120,000 number that was listed, that if it falls below this threshold, that would flag it for potential closure. And with that statement of that the majority of our data will come in through the summer months, I guess we're slated to have a lot of great information by end of August to see where we're at with that, if you don't anticipate a lot of fall numbers.
So this last year we did a little over 150,000 rounds. And so the 120,000 round reference that you're talking about was in the Fresh New Look, and that was one of the recommendations that would be of consideration. So it's not something that's set in stone. It's something that the golf committee is going to look at, bring back recommendations, and then ultimately the board would have to decide. So when I say, Ruth jumped in and said, you might be in the spring plus or minus 500 or 1,000 rounds. You're not going to have a 30,000 round swing unless it's a really catastrophic flood or something to that nature. We don't get that level, that great of a swing. If you look at our rounds over a 10-year period while they've been coming down, you don't get a 30,000 round swing in 1 year. It just doesn't happen. So it's not something, I don't think that the recommendation to consider closing a golf course at 120,000 rounds is something that we're going to go, okay, there it is, now close it immediately. I think it's going to still have to be something that's going to have to be well thought out and considered at the end of the year, a lot of deliberation. But I do think it does let the community know that if golf rounds continue to depress over time, that is a possibility, and that years ago we did over 200,000 rounds. So I don't think realistically, even if the trend were to continue, Susan, you did some regression analysis. I still think if it continued to depress at the same rate, you'd probably be looking at 3 to 5 years before we hit 120,000 rounds. Is that about right?
Yeah, so right now, and the trend has been almost the same for 20 years. It's about 4% per year. And the slope of the line is just a straight line. So it's probably about, I would say, 3 to 5 years before we reasonably hit that round unless something dramatic happens.
Okay.
Hit that.
Can I answer your question?
Yeah.
And then to add to that, Mike and the board, the previous board had discussed this, and part of the recommendation of the previous board in April was to hire a golf course consultant who could help us determine the demand and future demand and need for golf courses. And in July, we'll start getting some of that information from him as he wraps up his study, and we're going to relay that to the golf committee as well for their participation. And it may affect some of the preliminary strategy that this new board authorized based on this study done by a guy who's done 3,500 of these internationally as far as golf demand studies, golf market analysis, and so it may affect golf committee decisions, it may affect ours, and it may be still transparent for the next several years, as Tom mentioned, as golf continues to hopefully grow or decline. So it'll be another basis for helping us make a decision during the next several years.
September and October are very fluctuating golf months too. If it's nice weather, you can pile up a lot of golf rounds and people get kind of excited over on the uphill go, but then you may have a colder or maybe not quite so nice September and October and it's down and they say, oh, here we go again. So you've got to look at the long picture.
Question, Tom, when we do this reporting of the golf rounds, is that going to be presented to the board course by course or total rounds?
Well, that was one of the questions that came up last week, and I think it does make sense to go course by course. But I've kicked it to Philip and Daryl to see what they come up with. And, you know, what I've asked them to do is to develop a report that is not overly time consuming to generate, but is going to provide our property owners and the board with the best information possible.
Okay. For me, I'd like to see it course by course so that we can see what the participation rates are at each golf course. And then what we might be able to do is analyze that data and try to come up with some means of trying to encourage our golfers maybe to play some of the golf courses they don't play all the time. I know we have people that like to play Kingswood, we have people that like to play Dogwood, but we also have 3 or 4 other golf courses out there that are fun to play with. Maybe we can come up with a marketing strategy to get those people to go over there and play once in a while instead of just staying at one golf course.
Yeah, I like that. And Mike, going back to the 120 mark, you know, we get some property owners, outside play represents about 25% of our business, our golf business, and we have some property owners that are very much against outside play, even though that's how many people find out about us and they end up buying a membership or moving here or something to that nature. But if you withdraw that 25%, we're below the 120,000 mark. And I don't think everybody understands that, you know. So.
And our user fees would have to go up.
And our user fees would have to go up.
Way up.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Go ahead.
Okay. I know we've talked about, you know, the believability of the numbers of past years. And when you got here, you know, you didn't believe the numbers that you were seeing in rounds and the way the numbers were reported. Do you have any idea as to the accuracy or percent accuracy of the numbers for the last 10 years? You know, we talk about rounds were 260,000 and now we're down to this, and
So let's start with what I do know. I know that Philip and I went through, and Daryl worked on this too, we went through towards the end of 16 to make sure that everything was set up so that the numbers would be accurate in 17. So I can say that the numbers are accurate for 17, and that's the only thing that I'm willing to stand behind. Prior to that, I can say that the numbers were reasonably close. I don't want to put a percentage on it because it'd be an out-and-out guess. But we do know, I think Susan and I had this conversation, we know that the error was probably a consistent error. So the comparison from one year to the next was, you know, while the numbers were flawed, at least they were consistently flawed in a similar manner. I don't know that makes you feel any better. We do know this, and the question that we always get is, well, if the rounds were wrong, was the revenue wrong? And no. The revenue we counted for that was good. It's just, remember that rounds is not an audited number. Revenue is, but rounds are not. And I feel what they, Dwayne, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that they took the approach that since that's not an audited number, the need for it to be reliable was not as high, and I disagree, because that's information that helps you manage your business.
Was your feeling that the number of rounds was artificially inflated?
I don't know. I don't know if it was, I can't say if it was high or low. I can just say the way it was being represented wasn't the way I would have done it, and not how I was trained according to industry standards.
Okay.
I'm not sure they were always put in the proper category when they put them in so many different categories of 9 holes, 18, and guest rounds versus outings and things of that nature.
We have the ability now to really dig into our numbers, and we do this on a regular basis, where we can look at, how is our member twilight weekday rounds going? How's our non-member twilight weekday or weekend? We have it to that level of detail, because if rounds are up or down, you want to know why, and you have to identify where the problem is. And when the numbers are not detailed enough, then you're guessing. And if you're guessing why they're down or while they're up, too often people will say, well, the numbers are up, so I really don't care. Well, no, because if you find out why they're up, maybe you can double down. So we have it in that level of detail so that we can analyze and see what's going on and why, rounds are up or down or what's going on.
So if we have a member non-resident member who vacations here, comes in, only has a paper ID card, and they decide to play some golf while they're here, they play on their paper card, they are recorded as a member.
Mm-hmm.
With the paper card.
So even though they just have a paper card, they go into the computer by now.
Yeah, that's how we were able to, and this was used in the report. That's how we were able to determine that 5,500 residents played last year.
And so many of them were just a couple times, and I'm hoping that those people have potentially residents. They're still coming here for vacation, and I'm hoping that they will be residents someday and play more. We're all hoping that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Other questions? If not, that wraps up new business. On the very last page of your packet, the calendar, there is one correction. On the July 5th, the community involvement meeting will be canceled. Other than that, it stands as is. Strategic planning meeting is Tuesday, the 10th of July at 2:30 here in the boardroom. This is a closed meeting, and that will be the discussion of the study. GM meeting is Thursday, July 12th at 2:30 in the boardroom once again for a closed meeting. The board work session is Thursday, July 19th at 8 a.m. in the morning here in the boardroom. And the board of directors regular meeting is Thursday, July 26th at 6:30 here in the boardroom at the country club. And anything else?
I make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second on that.
Second.
We just adjourned. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming. Everybody that came tonight, we appreciate it. Thank you. Go Hogs. What is the Hogs?